my name is Noah and you're watching TJM Farming here on YouTube. This video is a compilation of sorts. It's jumps all over the place. At the time of recording this intro, it's the 24th of April. The following clips you're about to see are recorded a couple of weeks back. But I just want to let you know now at the start of this video that I'm going to be here to clarify a couple of things that past Noah may have missed or got incorrect. Right, good afternoon. You join us in the middle of April. It's still dry, as you can see. We haven't exactly had enough rain to get that these two paddocks over here up and growing feed wise. There is a little bit of feed around here. But as you can see here, we've got a Gilmac feed bag here. Why is that? We've taken a punt of sorts and we've scratched some funds together to get some pellets, as you've seen in the start of that clip from a couple of weeks back, where the pellet bag was on the forks of the loader. Now, why do we have these pellet bags on the back of the Mitsubishi truck? Well, there's a very good reason for that. Off screen, we've classed our black tag weaners. So we drafted off a bunch of culls and we've kept the best ones for breeding. This is because you may have seen at the end of some of the other videos a couple of weeks back where we sent off around 171 Wether lambs off on the truck off to Chilara. That's not the full flock number for the Wether lambs. Actually, there were about 50 or 60 stowaways which have been hovering between Bull Paddock, Little Boar and Boggy Ute Paddock for the best part of a couple of weeks. Now, about 1 or 2 weeks ago, Dad and I decided that we were going to class the black tag ewe weaners so that we could bolster those numbers, so that we could have the cull ewe weaners and the reject Wether lambs as a single group, which we're calling the reject flock. Now, the reason why we got the pellets on the back here is because we are going to be attempting to feedlot them. The pellets that we've got here, they came from Gilmac, which is based a hop, skip and a jump away from us over at New Norcia. We brought these over on the truck and they're hay pellets. They've got qualities that are good for helping to fatten up sheep. The plan is we're going to use these pellets and the self-feed out bin, which I'll show in the next couple of clips from back then. And basically the plan is we're going to feedlot the reject flock to fatten them up so that hopefully when we get our next clip of wool off them, they'll be up to selling weight, and hopefully, fingers crossed, by the end of this, we'll have $150 per head price tag on those black tag ewes and Wether lambs. So basically, that's our way of generating funds to help us continue our mission with this farm in its renovation. And to put it in perspective, a farmer's paycheck, well, it's not like a paycheck that any other worker in Australia would get. Ours is sometimes on a week-to-week basis, sometimes a month-to-month basis. It's sort of like a Hollywood actor, for example. When an actor gets cast for a movie, it provides them work for a couple of months, depending upon the role. It's a contract-based system. And the funds that they get during that contract role is supposed to last them over that period of time that they act in those movies. Farming, when we get a bit of income, be it selling sheep or at harvest time selling the crop to get an income in, we need to ensure that the funding from that doesn't get used up all at once and that it helps us keep the farm running for the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even the next year. All of these funds are supposed to help us balance the books and budget accordingly so that we can have adequate feed supply for our sheep, get things like seed and fertiliser in, parts for our machinery, and put the crop in. For those who have been watching us for a while, you may have spotted this hiding in the background of several videos left unmentioned. This, what is this? Well, this is Dad's Year 12 project, which he called the lolly cart. The purpose of this, it's a self-feed out bin. How it works is basically it's got a bin, it's open at the top, so you go park it underneath an auger, it unloads grain out of the silo, and it's got a chute down the bottom there that works via use of a pulley. You pull it out as you're driving along behind the ute here, and out comes grain or pellets at the bottom. Now, also at the time recording this, the latest video that should have popped up on TJM Farming, the latest long form video, was from March 28th when we had the Keep the Sheep convoy. Well, a lot of you have left some comments on the previous couple of videos, so I thought in this video, if all those people that are watching, here's my proper response to all of your comments. Under the See a Big Blue video, which got 3.7k views at the time of recording this, Brookdale Farm, hello Jeffrey. Jeffrey says, I'm glad you got it starting so well. Quite frankly, so are we. A bit of context behind the scenes as well. As you'd know, the starter motor on Big Blue was shot. The tractor was always a sluggish starter. It always was starting slower, like I showed off in the videos. And, oh well, it was quite a pain in the ass to get it going again. Dad and I had a lot of fun using all the slang words underneath the sun, getting the old starter motor off, putting the new starter motor on, and then checking to see if the tractor started. We still do have that old starter motor sitting in the shed if people want me to pull it apart. Dad and I were actually planning, when we have spare time later on this year, to pull the old starter motor apart, clean it up a bit, to see if we could, in theory, improve Big Blue's original starter motor without needing to buy a new one. Of course, it's too late to test that now because the tractor's long gone. Colin 9018 says, state and federal governments should give more support to our farmers instead of giving money and aid to ungrateful neighbouring countries. Sorry you have to downsize, blokes. Look, Colin, thank you for the kind words, mate. Yes, you got 100% correct. I do believe the Australian government is not giving enough support to farmers across the board. Not just on the WA sheep scene with the live export either. Fairly recently, our cousins over in South Australia, they're suffering drought, and so is Western Victoria, and up in Queensland, the farms up in Western Queensland, they had the opposite problem where all their land got flooded and all their cattle and sheep got washed away. Now, Australian farmers are very tough. We have to be because we're constantly battling droughts and flooding rains, as we typically do. But there is only so much Australian farmers can actually do without actually getting down on our knees and asking for help. But you're right. I do believe that the government needs to give more support to farmers. Not necessarily in the form of subsidies. We do not want to be paid by the government to keep farming. Although some people might say that's a nice thing, especially with all the loss in potential income in the farming industry as of late. What we really need in forms of support from the government is for them to stop going around with the cameras and the TV crews and stuff and supporting by making all these false promises. What we really need is members of the government to actually go out to these farms, speak to them, and ask, how can I help, mate? And get their hands dirty. It could be something as simple as, well, lifting the biosecurity laws for a start to let the hay trucks across the South Australian border to let them feed their sheep and cattle. And it can be other things like, say, politicians actually getting their hands dirty by helping to put up fences, rescue sheep in floods, and even send out the Defence Force to help these farmers get back online. Because at the end of the day, farming is one of those key industries in Australia that we'd all be stuffed without. As for the downsizing, look, yeah, it is going to be tough going in the next couple of years. We technically did downsize already from Nellie Creek because that was a 14,000 acre property with broadacre cropping and sheep. One of the many reasons why we got rid of Nelly Creek in the first place was, 1, the rainfall, 2, the community was not exactly great, and 3, well, as many farmers across WA are now experiencing now, if you get 2 bad runs and suddenly you're digging yourselves deeper and deeper and deeper into debt and having bigger overdrafts, all it takes is 1 bad year and it completely wipes you out. Dad got a real shocker when we did the budget in 2019 and 2020 when, put it this way, if we kept going with Nelly Creek the way we were planning to, like we did all through the 2010s, we would have had to borrow $1 million. That's how expensive it got with the seed, fertiliser, mechanic costs, and the cost of buying sheep feed in if we had another drought. Tyler Haslett 7815 says, I'm another up-and-coming farmer who was also raised on Little Red Tractor with Stan and the crew. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of us were, mate. Little Red Tractor is a very popular kids TV show. Not as popular as the likes of Tom's the Tank Engine, and for the Kiwi watchers out there who know a bit about their own children's TV show, The Tales of Massey Ferguson. Look, Little Red Tractor's not as popular as those TV shows were, but it is the spark that helped a lot of us get interested in farming to begin with. And so it is nice hearing other people being raised on the same stuff I did. It's good stuff. Now we get on to the doozy. The Look Out Perth, Here We Come, Keep the Sheep Convoy video. Let's start this off with Paddy Mickey 8221. I hope I pronounced that right. Who's from Ireland, and he says, it's a type of censorship against normal trading practices. Go the sheep emoji, clover, Australia, Canada, UK, Ireland, kangaroo, tractor, sheep. Yeah. Well, yes, exactly. It is censorship against normal trading practices. With things like live exports, a lot of trolls, especially in the next coming weeks, for those who have actually listened to what Holly and Mark and Benno and Yogi all said in their speeches towards the end of that video, these upcoming weeks ahead of the federal election, these are going to be the most important couple of weeks in this industry's history. And that is the fact. And we've already started seeing a lot of people come out and force, both in support and the minority jumping on the bandwagon against the cause. Look, I'm not here to tell you who to vote for. My job as a sheep farmer and a sheep farming YouTuber is not to tell you how to suck eggs. It is to help give you a glimpse into what it's like running a West Australian sheep farm. Yes, I know I've been delving into a little bit of the political side lately, but it is for very good reason, because it's my mission to give you as much information about our industry as possible, and it's impossible to ignore something as big as this live export ban. Of which, I've got this this comment right here that says,
bunch of hicks, pure political garbage. Who gives a crap about the sheep?
Really? Oh, let me think. How about all 27 million Australians, of which the sheep industry was the one that put Australia on the map in the first place? As I said earlier, it's not my place on YouTube to tell you how to suck eggs and which party's good and which party's bad. My mission on YouTube is to show you the reality of sheep farming in Western Australia, because we've got a completely different system to how they do it over east. And as I said, it's impossible to do that without talking about the live export ban. But anyway, I better get the loader started and we'll talk more about these comments when we get out the paddock. I hope I've got the camera positioned correctly and a bit better than last time, because I do check, I do review the footage. So yeah, if this view is a little bit better for you, then please do let me know down below, and we'll keep more views like this in future videos in the loader. Just dump this back. next couple of clips will be recorded when I was in the loader taking hay bales out a couple of weeks ago, and I replied to a comment speaking about the live export issue. Back onto the topic of comments. I got another one. This comment that says nothing wrong with sheep, just live export. Oh, this has got to take some explaining. Okay, so yeah, I get that I didn't exactly talk about the live export issue all that much in that one particular video. But the thing about this whole thing is they just don't get it. Alright, I suppose I better do another update video to the one that I didn't make almost a year ago. In Western Australia, we've got a completely different system of farming compared to our cousins over east. What past Noah was trying to say when he was unwrapping that hay bale in Middle Paddock was that Western Australia is a three-legged industry. We've got three main pillars meant to hold us up. The first is the domestic market, which is farmers selling to other farmers. That's where sheep studs like Peter at Chilara come in. They sell their rams to other farmers. And it comes to sale yards like they've got in Muirshea, where farmers send their sheep off to auction. Sometimes if they're breeding ewes, other farmers buy them to get their own flock numbers bolstered. Other times it's selling them onto the abattoirs where they become lamb chops and go into the supermarket. The second is the wool industry, which is where breeds like the Merinos or prime lines like they got in Victoria come into the mix. The wool is what employs people like shearers, rouseabouts, classies, stockies, truckies, etc. And people like our wool buyer Rob. That third pillar is the live export. Live export comes in as a predominant market for our Wethers. So now as I'll pass it back on to past Noah and he can explain a bit further. As those who have been following this channel for a little while over the course of the last year, you would know that when it comes to all kinds of sheep, there's three different sexualities of sheep. You got rams, which are the blokes, they do the jumping on the rear end to reproduce. You got the ewes, they're the mums. They give birth to the lambs and basically raise them as a caretaker until they're old enough to look after themselves. That third factor is wethers. Now, wethers are castrated rams. We take their balls off to stop them inbreeding in the flock. It depends on the type of area that you're farming and how long you keep them for. Most of the time when wether lambs get old enough, you put them on a feedlot, you fatten them up and then you sell them to turn them off quick to make some money. Sometimes you get in that situation where you simply cannot get rid of the wethers and you keep them longer than what you'd usually do when you take them to the sale yards. So beyond that 6 to 8 month period, you're stuck with them, you take a second lot of wool off them, and by that time they're too old to be classed as lamb meat. So what do we do then? Because Australians, they like their Aussie lamb, they do not like mutton. And mutton is the next stage of maturity when it comes to sheep meat. When you get wethers that are too old to be classed as lamb meat and classed as mutton, the onshore processors, that's the abattoirs that do them for the boxed meat market, which all the naysayers want us to transfer to, the simple fact is the processors don't want wethers that are older than that 6 to 8 month period. They don't want that. So we're stuck with these sheep that are classed as mutton, and once their wool production life expires, what then? They'd have no market for them. That's where live export comes in. Live export basically involves offloading all these extra wethers that the Australian market doesn't want, but other countries across different parts of the world and different climates that cannot sufficiently grow their sheep in the same manner, they'll happily take our wethers off us live. This is where SCAS, which is the regulator for the live export, comes in. They make sure that the moment these wethers leave the farm, they are looked after every step of the way, right up to the point where they go to the slaughterhouse and become lamb chops. Where do we stand on this issue? I am for live export. Do we live X as sheep all the time? No, of course not. Live export on our farm, we only live export sheep when they are offering the best price. Because you've got to remember that, like all farmers, sheep farmers are price takers, not price setters. We look for the best deal in the market. If that means sending them off to Mershay where other farmers buy them for breeding, okay, that's good. Or if the abattoirs buy them and they're processed on shore, that's good as well. But in that instance where none of the other sheep producers are buying sheep and none of the abattoirs are buying sheep, where's that last option for us farmers to go to? Because without live export, it's like a three-legged chair. Or in this instance, this very tripod, you can see it in the shadow, it's got 3 legs. Take one of these legs away, little by little, and you will soon realize that just like the sheep industry, the camera falls over. That's exactly what I'm getting at here. The sheep industry is like this tripod. It needs all 3 legs to sustain it. And that's my point. Without live exports, what's gonna happen? Well, in case you haven't realized, 2 abattoirs have closed in WA in the past 8 months. One in Tammin and one in Esperance. Those abattoirs closing are simply due to the fact that people are cutting their sheep numbers in half. The flock numbers are going down in Western Australia and the sheep price is going to reflect that. And it's very contradictory to Prime Minister Albanese when he wants everything processed in WA by building 20 new abattoirs which require specialised equipment which cost billions of dollars to do. Not quite billions, but you get my point. He wants to build 20 new abattoirs that can accommodate 14,000 sheep, or however many sheep the live export vessels carry. He wants to replace the live export vessels with abattoirs that are supposed to carry the same amount of sheep and build them in 4 years. Mr. Prime Minister, I'm not sure if you realise this, but none of these abattoirs are being built. He reckons he's all about jobs. He reckons he's all about WA. But this is the fact. Mr. Albanese, WA does not like you. You stuff over WA, you stuff over WA farmers. What are you gonna get? Well, keep the sheep. Put labour last, for goodness sake. I'm the 3rd generation in my part of the family when it comes to farming. I'm just breaking into this industry, and so many other 19 or 20-year-olds just like me are also trying to break into this industry, only for the government to go and pull the rug out from under us. Live X or not, the sheep industry cannot stand on 2 legs if the government wants to shut down that 3rd leg. For an added perspective, TJM Farming was started on my 13th birthday on 11th of July 2018. That's when I started YouTube. In 2021, we put Nelly Creek up for sale and we bought Erinvale in its place. When the handover happened for Erinvale, we had 7 tractors, 2 trucks, 2 side-by-sides, a header, a chaser bin, a sprayer, 2 air seeder bars, and an air seeder tank. How are we supposed to diversify if we've already diversified? We are what is called a mixed farming operation. And what do I mean by that? Cropping and livestock. That's what makes mixed farming work in Western Australia and across onto the east coast as well. Take one avenue of that stream away and you put all your eggs in one basket, as Caleb Cooper said on Clarkson's farm, 2 bad years in a row, you're done. Started with all that machinery back in 2022, a couple of months before Albo got elected. Where are we standing now, 3 years later? Well, we haven't got as much nice stuff as some people would like to think. Because from that 7 tractors, 2 headers, a sprayer, chaser bin, air seeder bars, what are we left with? We haven't got 7 working tractors anymore, we've only got 2. And a wreck, that's a Chamberlain. We've got Johnny Header Mark II that's still up at Canna that we have no idea what condition it's in, and we don't know if it's even going to work this coming harvest, if we can get a crop in time. We've sold Big Blue simply to pay the bills and to make ends meet, to just get the seed and fertilizer and buy the combine to put our own crop in here. That air seeder that Big Blue pulled is still sitting there, not been sold, because the simple fact is everyone's doing it tough right now. You think the cost of living's bad in the city, come out to the bush, it's worse out here. I'm not telling you how to suck eggs, but I know where I stand on this whole issue. Keep the sheep. If you want to support Australian farmers, if you want to secure the future of these rural communities that will die because shearers lost a third of their income, hay contractors will go out of business because nobody will be growing hay because no sheep. What about the fencing contractors? The livestock yards, the livestock yard manufacturers, Whitnells, where we got our sheep yards at home, they've gone broke because nobody's wanted to buy sheep yards. All of these people will suffer because of this ban. Yeah. Oh, I had a bit of fun doing that stunt with the GoPro. It's really a good example with tipping the GoPro over like that, because that's exactly what it's gonna look like for the whole Western Australian sheep industry if the live export leg goes and the other two legs just cannot make it stand. Next example, I may have mentioned like the market conditions. This is a day later when you're about to see this. Instead of what I was originally going to say, let's call these examples for the two big abattoirs, Bogarts and Williams. Without the live export market there, and less of a market for the processors, they're all going corporate. What's that going to do to the price? Remember what I said in the video originally covering live export May last year. Supply and demand. Say for example, you've got a flock of 200 fat Wether lambs ready to be sold. What are your market options? One option is to go to two of the big processors. Let's say for example in this fictional scenario, we've got Williams and Bogarts as our two big processors. Now, Williams also have big processing plants over east, but they do not like charging the farmers very fair prices. They'll try to get their product for the cheapest price possible. They're bargain hunting basically. Now, say these 200 Wethers, they're worth $150 per head. Run the numbers, let's get the calculator out. Let's say you've got 200 fat Wether lambs worth $150 per head. You get $30,000 off those 200 Wether lambs easy if you get the price that they're worth. Now, farmers, much like the corporations that we're selling to, we're searching for the best deal possible. If Williams and Bogarts come marching up to our farm gate and say, we'll buy your sheep, but we don't want them for $150 a head, we reckon that's too expensive, we'll give you $50 per head. With live export there, charging a flat rate of $100 per head minimum in good market conditions, the farmer will shake his head and say, no, I'm not going to fall for that dirty trick. I'll just send them onto the boats instead if you're not going to give me a fair deal. They'll use live export as a bargaining chip, because when the processors try to rip the farmers off, live export's always that third alternative market for us to go to. Say for example in the worst case scenario that we end up with Albo and Co in for another 3 years and the ban really does go ahead in 2028. What's going to happen then? Well, we've already seen symptoms of that. Summertime 2023, 2024. With our old orange and white tags. We sent them off to Fletcher's because the live export boats weren't running then, but they didn't charge us very high. Matter of fact, they charged us $27 per head on average for those old ewes. Now that's not very much at all. That's a loss maker. That's making a deficit, not a profit. Back to this fictional scenario where the ban does come in. What's going to happen to the overall sheep price? It's going to tank, because if we keep going the way they are now, with farmers breeding sheep year by year and the flock numbers are up, that market will be flooded because there won't be any new abattoirs or abattoir companies entering that market, and it's just going to be a duopoly between Williams and Bolgarts, for example. So when the ban comes into place, the farmer won't have a leg to stand on with that bargaining chip that is live exports. And Williams will say, righto, well, we reckon that $5 a head will be a fair price for your sheep. You see what I mean here? That's a $145 per head loss. That's not even enough to cover your electricity bill, let alone the cost of shearers, the cost of fencing materials, the cost of hay. It's not even enough to cover the monthly fuel bill that keeps our Kubota and the Gator and the tractors running. Live exports' main market demographic are these old Wethers that do not qualify for the Australian domestic market. We send these live sheep, as well as boxed meat, over to our customers overseas, mostly in the Middle East, but sometimes in Indonesia, India, places like that. And as of recently, the industry has bent over backwards to make our animal welfare standards the best in the world. You only need to look at the Livestock Collective to see that. And if you don't believe me, well, I've heard this first accounts from vets who have been on these boats. As a matter of fact, you may have seen me in a couple of clips on the Keep the Sheep Facebook page, because we did attend Perth's biggest barbecue. I didn't film it because I wanted to be off GoPro, actually socialising for once. And I mean, it was great fun being out and about as part of the community and helping to educate our city cousins. What's the brutal reality if Albo gets back in and they decide that they're going to ban the live sheep industry? Simple. Farmers will not be growing sheep anymore. They'll become worthless. As a matter of fact, it's going to make the West Australian merino an endangered species. Okay, that may be a bit exaggerated on my part, but still, a lot of people will exit the industry. We've already started seeing that. A lot of people have started turning to cropping and getting rid of their sheep. We'll see history repeat itself if this ban goes through. People won't be selling their sheep because there'll be no market for it. It'll be a repeat of 1991. I don't want to put down my sheep. I've only just broken into this industry. 6 months out of school. That's how short a time period I was out of high school when Murray Watt made that bombshell announcement. It's young guns like me that just want to start breaking into this industry. Not necessarily live export, but the sheep industry in general. Because we grew up around this. It's what our parents did, it's what our grandparents did, and in some instances, it's what our great-grandparents did. But there is hope yet. We are not giving up. Hell no. There's a simple solution to all this, and it happens at the ballot box. So all my Australian viewers, we've got one chance to get rid of this Labor government, to keep the sheep, and stop the steamrolling of getting rid of our industries. Labor's already tried to get rid of the live cattle trade in 2011. Cut it off overnight. Suicide numbers of farmers skyrocketed in the cattle industry. Those cattle farmers, they fought tooth and nail for their industry, but they still haven't seen compensation almost, it'd be well over 10 years since that first ban came in. And they tried it again with the sheep industry. What's gonna happen if Labor get back in? Well, they'll steamroll through cattle, they'll steamroll through the chickens, they'll steamroll through goats, pigs, camels. They won't stop. The Animal Justice Party will not stop until there's no livestock left in Australia. And this is terrible because it puts our food security at risk. I'm not sure if you noticed, but Erinvale is classed as a parkland cleared block. Sandy soils that are only really fit enough for growing pasture. This year will be our second attempt at trying to grow a crop. But the simple reality is, if we do not keep the sheep, then there's not much point in us owning this farm in the first place. We would have been better off on Nellie Creek. We bought Erinvale in the first place because we wanted high rainfall area, we wanted to focus on our sheep, and we wanted to make the farm more manageable as Dad got older and as I would come into the industry, and once I really got the ball rolling in terms of this whole farming game, we'd start expanding again. If we can't grow a crop here, and there will be no market for sheep, and cattle will be on the chopping block next, we're reaching an end game. Now, Albo has made it very clear that he reckons he supports Western Australia. Really, Mr. Prime Minister? How many times have we tried to confront you face to face simply for a genuine conversation about why the hell you're trying to trade in our livelihoods for votes in Melbourne? They shut down logging. They've shut down the charter fishing industry. They tried to shut down the sheep industry. What's next? To my fellow Australians, we've only got one chance. Please, for goodness sake, put Labor last. Help us keep the sheep. If we do not stop this ban, it's going to steamroll our rural communities till there's nothing left. I don't want to lose my livelihood. I've only just gotten into this industry. I'm only just starting to come into the workforce. And it's not making it any easier. They never said it would be easy under Mr. Albanese, but whether you're rural or urban, it's very clear that everyone's doing it tough. Albo, you don't care about Western Australia whatsoever. It's contradictory in itself to say that you support West Australian industry, but the live export ban is non-negotiable. We are going to fight tooth and nail to keep the sheep, whether you like it or not. Even if it means that we take it to our graves, we will not stop fighting for our rural communities, for our kids, for our mates, for the younger generation, my generation, and my younger sister Chloe's generation. Chloe wants to be a vet when she's older. There won't be a vet industry in agriculture if the sheep industry's gone. That's why we need to keep the sheep so badly. That's why the message at the end of that video was very clear. Stand with our rural communities. Stop the ban, keep the sheep, put Labor last. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all this context provided. In other news, we've got a sneak peek for you. Let's sneak around the tractor. Do a YouTube exclusive of what's coming up in the future. Look at that. Sitting in the background, we've got our combine down here. We'll talk about this more in the next video, but for now, we're gonna leave it here. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, drop a comment, drop a question in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to help you out, answer a couple of questions, or give feedback and whatnot. And yeah, we need to get back to work because we got sheep to feed, and happy farming, people.